Okay, it's going live in once the bar. You should be. Okay, it's going live in once the bar.
All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today. My name is James Fernando. I'm a jazz piano faculty member here at Levine Music. I've been here for about a year, and I've been loving it so far. It's been really fantastic. The faculty are all great. Students, gotta love all my students. And this year is a particularly exciting year for us here at Levine, and for me in particular. I'm looking forward to another year of working with my private students. I've got we've got a brand new program which we tested out over the summer, which is the Recording Jazz Ensemble, which I'm going to get into talking in great detail about later on in this segment. Um, I'm also really excited about an ear training class that we debuted over the summer, and that went really well. A jazz ear training class where students will learn how to transcribe their favorite jazz solos and learn how to incorporate that stuff into their own playing. I'm also particularly excited because I myself am going to be a student at Levine this semester. I am going to be taking voice lessons from one of our fantastic vocal teachers. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I want to first bring up our recording jazz ensemble, which, like I mentioned, began over really kind of evolved as a result of the jazz combos all moving online. We lost the ability, obviously, to play what we call synchronously, as if we were all in the same room. And that's because whenever we're doing anything online, we have a little bit of what we call latency, where even though we're technically live, we may be receiving the signal, or you may be receiving the signal a quarter of a second after I'm finished speaking. And that's totally fine in conversations. If our conversations move at a quarter second delay or whatever it may be, depending on your internet connection. But in music, time really is the medium in which we perform. So any slight variation is presents a huge challenge. So our combos kind of evolved naturally into what we're now calling our recording jazz combos. And those are really, really exciting. Basically, what we do is we take you from the start all the way to the finish of making a recording. We pick our songs together. In fact, I've had a combo, actually two combos even, write their own song together. So we even get into the compositional side of things. Then we arrange it for our particular instrumentation. We work on the improvisation, we work on the performance, the delivery of the melody, the accompaniment, all that stuff. And then everyone records their parts and sends them to me, and I will mix them together. And so we even talk about all of those, that the whole post-production side of things, where once something is mixed or once something is recorded, what do we do with that? And that's a really, really fascinating side of this music, which we didn't used to get to explore in our live performance settings. There's plenty to talk about in performance, but the whole mixing side of things is a whole new set of challenges, and that's been really, really fun for students to get involved in. People are often amazed by all of the possibilities that are available to us in today's music recording environment. If you make a mistake, we don't we don't have to keep it. We can take 5 takes and splice them all together. All of these sorts of things are really fun. And students have been loving it. They've been loving it because of a few reasons. Number one is they get to leave the recording jazz combo with a recording of themselves playing, and it sounds great, and they can share it with their friends and family, and it's something that it never goes away. They've got that recording to keep and listen to forever. They've also really enjoyed how it makes you listen to yourself in a different way, on a different level. You know, whenever you're in a live performance, if you make a small mistake, nobody really cares and you move on, right? You play a bad note, that's not, there's no consequence, right? When we have the recording combos, students often find themselves pushing themselves to that next level because they play something and they listen back to it and they're like, ooh, I think I could have done that better. And they hear all these things that they know they can really attack and improve on, and they really ascend to that next level of their performances. So I'd like to show you guys a few of the recordings that we've made over the summer in our summer combos, which is a shorter session. It was a 5-week session over the summer, and our regular fall combos are going to be 8-week sessions. So let me just do a quick share right here. So this first one is a Grover Washington tune called Mr. Magic. Check it out.
He looked at me one day and chased my blues away, chased my blues away with his sweet smile. I never dreamed I'd meet a man so fine. There was something in his eyes, Mr. Magic. Where have you gone, Mr. Magic? Where have you gone, Mr. Magic? You turn me on.
So that's one example of a piece that one of my combos decided to do. And the whole process of recording that is really interesting. You know, like I said, we're not in the same room. In a studio setting, for those of you who have ever been to the studio yourselves, or, you know, have watched someone in the studio, or even just seen it on TV, you know, generally we're all in our separate rooms with our headphones on, but playing at the same time. And the reason we're separated is for this mixing purposes of being able to change as much of the sound as possible. If we're all recorded on our separate microphones, then you can change the trumpet player's sound without necessarily needing to alter the drums as a result of that. So usually, like I said, that's all happening at the same time. But in this case, what we did was we had the drummer, he had a metronome in his ear, and he recorded the groove. And then I put that into my software, and I used a little tiny keyboard, and I recorded a bass line. So we started off with the drums and bass, and then we basically kept on adding and adding and adding parts on until eventually we had it all, and we had our recording. So that was Mr. Magic. I'd also like to show you guys, this one is Alone at Last, by a voice and guitar duo. The composers of this are a group named Rachel and Vilray. And this was really fun. The students had brought this piece in because it's guitar and voice in the combo, and they were looking for repertoire that might fit their particular circumstance. And they thought, well, let's try this one out. Problem was, there wasn't any music for it anywhere. So we also got to go into, how do we learn a piece that we don't have music for? How do we do that by ear? And so what we did was we basically created our own sheet music for this tune, and then we went through the process of recording it. We performed it. We learned, the guitarist worked on his accompaniment patterns. The vocalist decided how she was going to sing it, and this is the result. I'll play you guys about 30 seconds or so of it.
Once was agoraphobic. Times Square would make me gasp. I let full trains go past. With you, I feel alone at last.
Yeah. So these are all like 4-minute recordings, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but yeah, every student takes an improvised solo over part of each one of these tunes, and that's a whole aspect of these combos as well. And I want to show you guys one more. This piece is one that was co-composed by the combo. We actually did this. We had actually started this with a jazz combo prior to the lockdown beginning, and so we kind of had a head start on the composition and the arrangement. And then lockdown happened, and we needed to finish it. We needed to record it. So check this out. This is yet another side of this jazz combo, this recording jazz combo that we can get into. This is More Than a Fragrance, an original piece by some of our students.
You can smell her fragrance, yeah. You can smell it in her hair. If you think you really need her, that kind of love is only theater.
One thing I want to point out that's really cool about this, that we don't get to experience in a regular jazz combo where we're all sitting there in the same room at the same time, is we actually have one trumpet player in this combo, and he's playing 4 different trumpet parts at the same time. He just recorded them one after another and sent them all over, and so you can hear it sounds like a whole horn section that comes in. I'll play that part again for you, but it's actually really just one trumpet player.
You can smell it in her hair. If you think you really need her, that kind of love is only theater.
All right, so that's the end of the jazz recording combo demonstration. I'd love to take some questions, but before we get to that, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about some of the other Sorry about that, my microphone cut out for a moment. Anyways, like I was saying, that's the end of this little demo on the recording jazz combos. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to take them. Why don't you go ahead and type those in the Facebook comments, and I'll get to those in a minute. Before I start answering any questions on that, though, I'm going to shift and just tell you guys a little bit more about some of our other jazz classes that we have here at Levine. So, I myself am also teaching a course called Jazz Piano 101, where we simply dive into the basics of jazz piano. It's a group class. We talk about chord structures, we talk about improvisation, about accompaniment, all this sort of stuff. And I'll show you the piece that I'm doing with one of my Jazz Piano 101 sections right now. This is a piece called Moanin' by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. It goes a little something like this. So that's how we play the what we call the head or the melody of that piece. And then we get into some improvisation. Back into the melody. So those are all, all of those elements that I just played are things that we discuss in this Jazz Piano 101 course. I am also teaching, what else am I teaching? Oh, I'm also teaching jazz ear training, like I said earlier in this presentation. And so the jazz ear training course, we learn how to identify harmony, how to identify melody, we learn how to improvise, or we learn improvisational techniques by what we call transcribing some of the great jazz solos. So that's also a really interesting way to build your jazz vocabulary. And I always say your ear is the most important asset that a musician has. And so strengthening the ear is like weightlifting for musicians. And so that's what the jazz ear training course is all about. Some other courses that I'm not teaching that folks may be interested in is Intro to Jazz for Adults by another wonderful jazz piano teacher named Jeffrey Chappell. There's the Capital City Voices at Levine, led by Wayne Willentz. That's a jazz choir, and they've been making some really beautiful recordings. And then the Jazz Improv Ensemble, led by Francisco Quintero, is for 11 to 14-year-old students who want a little bit of a primer before they're ready to join a jazz combo. If maybe they're not quite sure if they're ready to dive in and start playing jazz with other kids their age, they can take this class to kind of get them ready for that next step. All right, so that's been it's been a lot of monologue here. Do I have any questions at all? Okay, well, I'm not getting any questions fed to me, so I'll just go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about some of the questions I'm frequently asked. So one is, am I advanced enough for these classes? That's always a question, especially with adult students. Adult students tend to be really, really timid about, if they're ready or not. And almost always, if you're asking the question, the answer is yes. We have a few basic prerequisites for the Jazz Piano 101 class, for example. We don't require that anyone is an excellent sight reader or anything like that, but we do want folks to have a baseline knowledge of note reading. So if you can have a treble clef or a bass clef and you see the note and maybe you don't know it right away immediately, but you can figure it out and it doesn't take you all that long to figure it out. That's the kind of level that we're looking for. And I can't speak for every single one of these classes, but it's generally just a baseline knowledge. Maybe you've got some music fundamentals under your belt, and then this would be the next step. So one of the things for the jazz combos is that you're gonna need to take a placement audition, and it's really not it's not that bad, I promise. All you do is you're gonna talk to Jeremy, who's our great new contemporary music chair. Well, he's not a new chair, but he used to be the rock chair, and now he's the contemporary music chair, so jazz falls under that umbrella. And Jeremy will help you get placed into a combo that's a good fit for you. Let's see. What other questions? People often want to know what songs we'll play in these recording jazz combos, for example. And that is going to be up to you. You're going to be part of this band. As much as possible for my combos, I try to be hands-off about the repertoire decision. In fact, I kind of take that approach through a lot of my teaching, in that I want students to be as excited about this music as possible. So usually that means, they pick the pieces that they want to learn, and we do those. And that tends to work really well. That gets people really excited about it, and they're already doing the music they love, and there's lessons to be learned in every piece. So we can use any song as a way of not only making a sweet recording, but also growing along the way. And some other questions that I get pretty frequently are, what are the age requirements? So for the recording jazz combos, those are adult classes, but there are jazz combos for kids as well. There's the jazz improv ensemble that I mentioned as kind of that primer, but there's also, especially for teenagers, there's a couple of jazz combos available to you. Again, any more detailed questions as far as who exactly should be in which combo, you're going to want to probably reach out to Jeremy Castillo, and he'll help you out there. And then the ear training class is adults, but I believe we take students as young as 15 for the jazz ear training class. And Jazz Piano 101 is adults, that's 18 and up. And I guess another question that I get a lot is, how has the transition to the online teaching worked out? Well, for me personally, the transition to the online teaching has gone really, really smoothly. it really couldn't have been any better. And I think we're discovering that it's it's really a matter of pros and cons when you're comparing online teaching to regular in-person instruction. For the one of the downfalls for online teaching is that the technique side of things, at least in my private lessons, I don't always get a full view of my students' posture, or their hand position isn't always the best camera angle, and so maybe we don't get to discuss those things. However, on the flip side, we have a lot of other really great conveniences that are created by this. One is that we do all of our teaching over Zoom, and so there's that nice handy record button right built into there. So students don't have to take notes if they don't want to. If that's not their style, they can just hit record and they've got it. They can go back and they can not only hear me talking, they can go back and they can look at my hands, and I've got this overhead camera angle set up already. And students can go back and say, ooh, what finger was he using on that note? What are the notes in that chord? All of that sort of stuff. I've also got a nice microphone set up here, so hopefully, as you are experiencing now, I hope the sound quality is nice and clear. For the jazz combos, I think I kind of went over that pretty clearly in terms of all of the pros and cons of what moving to online has done for us, and that we can record things and we can go through that process. We get to create in just a different way. And I think the same can be said for pretty much every class. There's clear advantages to being in person. There's also clear advantages to being remote. Not to mention the fact that no one's getting stuck in traffic, and there's no commute. That helps for sure. But yeah, the online teaching has been really smooth. Okay, do I have any other questions rolling in before we close this thing up? I'll give you guys maybe another minute or so to finish typing. Okay. Oh, is the recording done on a phone or a tablet? Sorry, Jerry, I didn't see that question there. I'll get to that now. So, yeah, recording has been done kind of on whatever device folks have available to them. So, ideally we've got a microphone, but in all the recordings that you heard, whether it was the Mr. Magic, the More Than a Fragrance, the Student Original, and the Alone at Last, those were often all done on iPhones. So, yeah, that's a good question. I myself have a microphone here, and I encourage students to have something a little more substantial than just a phone, but it absolutely works. It absolutely works. Okay, and then Jerry, you have also asked you can record and play back. Yeah, that's helpful. And with a digital keyboard, sometimes, depending on what other gear you have, sometimes there's a way to plug directly in so that you're not even recording the sound from your amp, you're recording just the sound from the keyboard directly in, and that gives us yet another level of higher sound fidelity, as well as along with that, more editing that's available to us. So yeah, that's also really fun. You said, I'm also hoping to merge vocals, in which I think I'm hearing now. Mr. Magic. So when you say merge vocals, I imagine what you mean is singing a harmony part as well as the melody. And yes, that is absolutely possible. So I don't know if you're asking that as if, can we do that in the jazz recording ensemble? And that is a resounding yes. We in fact did it on that particular piece. But in addition to that, can you do that at home? Well, it depends on what you have available to you. The easiest way to do something like that would be to use GarageBand. And I believe they have a version of that available for iPhone or iPad, but they definitely have that on every Mac computer. So yeah, you can do that at home, and if you have a PC, any DAW, which stands for a digital audio, is it workspace or workstation? I always get that last W word mixed up. But yeah, any DAW will enable you to do what we call multi-track recording, where you've got one thing and then you add a second, and you can edit those things independently of one another. And that's really the crux of these recording jazz ensembles. Okay, let me just see if we have any final questions. And if not, we're going to wrap this up. That looks like it. Well, thank you guys all so very much for joining. This was our presentation on the jazz combos, as well as some other things in the jazz program. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out, and I would encourage you all to check out the Levine Music website. You'll find, I'm sure, a lot of the answers to any questions you're looking for there. And I sincerely hope that I see some of you in one of my classes this semester. All right, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care.